takes is one bad day. That's how far the world is from where I am. Just one bad day. You had a bad day once, am I right? Oh, I know I am. I can tell. You had a bad day and everything changed.
Life is tough as balls. We gotta fight tooth and nail for everything that we care about and everything that we value as a person. And sometimes life's not fair. It doesn't fucking play fair, and it kicks dust in our fucking face and pimp slaps us across the fucking room. And it did just that to the protagonist of Trails in the Sky first chapter and Trails in the Sky second chapter, Joshua Bright. It wouldn't be an understatement to say that Joshua had everything he cared about stripped away from him in one horrible fucking day. So how did Joshua go from looking like this to looking like this in the very first game, in the very first few seconds of the game that we see him? How did he become Mr. fucking Casanova after having essentially his life destroyed? That's what we're here to talk about today.
When he got old enough to carry a gun, commanders taught him how to use it.
We used to live a life of war. Sometimes we were attacked and ran away, and we would come back and just fight and fight. Sometimes we would attack. That is how my life used to be.
Gigantic spoiler warning for everything that comes after this. 3, 2, 1. Joshua Bright, then known as Joshua Astray, was born in a small Erebonian village in the Sutherland province known as Hamel. Hamel was a strategically unimportant village, so unimportant that most residents of the empire, the Erebonian Empire that it resided in, didn't even know of its existence after it had been wiped off the fucking map. But why exactly was it wiped off the map? Well, let me tell you, dear viewer. In the context of the Zamorian continent, the Erebonian Empire has always been an expansionist power, and expansion has been used greatly to increase the political prestige and influence of whoever is able to facilitate it. And we see this play out with certain officials in the Erebonian government and a certain George Wiseman, a malevolent figure that we have actually talked about before on this channel. Go watch that video if you want to know more about Mr. Wiseman. Either way, long story short, Hamel was essentially used in a false flag operation to create an excuse for the Erebonian Empire to invade their southern neighbor, the Liberl Kingdom. The village was attacked by hired Jaegers dressed as liberal soldiers, and the people were butchered, their village burnt to the ground, and Joshua happened to be there to witness the death of his family, his friends, and directly witnessed the death of his sister, an extremely important person to him. Not only that, but this event was the first instance of Joshua actually killing someone. After which, George Wiseman, the very same man who had a hand in orchestrating the events, essentially took Joshua and turned him into a killer. You see, after the events that had taken place, Joshua was so mentally scarred that he entered almost a vegetative state. He could hardly function. But Wiseman, with his thaumaturgy and his mind manipulating abilities, was able to essentially sew Joshua's mind back together. But Wiseman is a fucking asshole and an evil bastard. So when he did this, he sewed him back together to be essentially his fucking assassin and borderline slave. As a member of the organization that Wiseman belonged to, Ouroboros, Joshua would go on to essentially act as a child soldier, killing many, many more people. This is until he failed to kill one person. That being Cassius Bright, the father of the main protagonist, Estelle Bright. After his defeat at the hands of Cassius, Cassius took him in under his wing and adopted him formally into their family, which is where he would meet Estelle Bright, the source of his healing as a person.
My own little bunny rabbit. I will name him George, and I will hug him and pet him and squeeze him.
I'm not a bunny rabbit.
Estelle played a crucial role in the healing process for Joshua as a person. And the key reason why that is because for somebody who was a child soldier, we've seen a big part of the therapy process is the whole idea of getting them to relearn how to be a kid, getting them to relearn what it means to be a human being. And this is what Estelle essentially did unconsciously. We see in their particular star door in Trails in the Sky the Third that this was not a fast process. Joshua was not quick to completely adapt to the environment and the vibe of Liberl, but through just playing with Estelle, sitting there watching her fish or her whole bug collecting shtick, slowly but surely he was able to sort of reclaim aspects of his humanity and become more attuned to a more peaceful existence. She is with most certainty his light, his sunshine, and that is why he is so fiercely protective of her throughout the course of Trails in the Sky first chapter and second chapter. In Rowan, in first chapter, he was willing to kill to protect her, and we see with much certainty throughout the rest of the series that he's willing to go to extreme lengths to keep her out of harm's way, oftentimes to the detriment of maybe what she fucking wants to do or what she feels like doing, which is a big part of the conflict of second chapter. When Ouroboros makes its grand entrance into Liberl, Joshua blames himself for everything that sort of happened, him unconsciously feeding them information about Cassius's movements and blaming himself for essentially a lot of the bad shit that happens in first chapter. So he leaves, he puts himself out of her life because he views himself as the danger to Estelle, as the thing bringing his new home into chaos, and he tries to solve all the problems by himself, which causes far more hurt and pain to Estelle than he seemed to realize, because Estelle had grown close to him. Estelle had fallen in love with him, and him removing himself from her life was just as painful as if something horrible had happened to her or her family, because he was a part of that family. And a big aspect of Joshua's growth is letting go of his own shame and his own guilt and accepting fully and truly his new life. Something that many children who were extremely traumatized through having to kill or engage in lots of violence as a young person struggle to do. It's not an understatement to say that Joshua is kind of a miracle case, but in a sense the Brights are kind of miracle workers in this way, because he wouldn't be the last person that they would help in this way. So what's the message? What's the takeaway from all of this? I would say that has to do with the fact that people take for granted the small joys of life and how those things can really help you feel like an actual fucking human being. How it can make you a person who is not filled with hatred in your heart. The continent of Zemoria is a fucking shit show, a freaking nightmare of political instability and absolute chaos that brings misery to a lot of people who don't deserve it. But one of the few bastions of stability in the Zemorian continent is the Liberl Kingdom, which is very far removed from a lot of the chaos of the rest of the continent, despite a lot of other characters referring to it as a backwaters, as a place of little import, or as a place where skilled people would go to waste their talents. I think that it's by far one of the nicest places to live in the entire continent. It's the kind of environment that Joshua really needed in order to heal as a person. Even characters who weren't necessarily in a fucked up state like this found a great improvement in their personality and in their general attitude, like the Erebonian ambassador, for example. Somebody like Mueller commented about how he could hardly believe how positive the effects of living in Liberl has had on him. The little things like going to school with Estelle, watching her fish, playing music, training, all those little things that Joshua did were profoundly important for his healing. And I think that in our world, healing is definitely a process of doing what you love and enjoying the very minute little things that we take for granted every single day. Another thing of importance to take away is the importance of bonds and of positive relationships in a person's life. Having Estelle, Cassius, Shahrazad, and just the general people of Roland in Joshua's life was an extremely positive thing for him, and having people who actually cared about him and wanted to see him happy and healthy, that is an incredible boon, especially when you're trying to heal or recover from a lot of psychological issues. A lot of other people don't fucking have that, right? And I suspect that this is one of the biggest differences between a character like Joshua or even a later character like Ren from a lot of the other society members. I think one of the most damning examples of that would be Walter the Direwolf. After killing his master, Master Ryoma, and fleeing the Tito-style dojo, unbeknownst to Walter, he had essentially alienated all of his past friends and people who cared about him before his life as an enforcer. When he finally meets Kilika again in Sky's second chapter, she bluntly tells him that she wants nothing to do with him. He's now at odds with his friend Zin, who grows to be stronger than him and defeats him. He now has nowhere else to go. He is now trapped in his life of darkness. That's one of the major reasons why, of all the characters in Trails in the Sky's second chapter, he's one of the characters I pity the most, despite the fact that he's an asshole. Joshua's brother-in-law Loewe is another character I feel sorry for, not because of the fact that he has nowhere to go, but rather that he got the chance to change his life and go down the path of righteousness once again, because Joshua opened that path for him in their fight, but he never truly got to live that because his life was taken away very shortly after that path opened for him. It's like a new lease on life, essentially being ripped away from somebody prematurely, and it makes you wonder and think about what Trails would be like if he was still alive today. Overall, this presents a great divide, a great gap between people who have others in their lives, who are liked and loved by others, and people who are not, and how not having those people in your life can be a huge burden on you and essentially keep you in the dark. But that's not the story of Joshua Bright. He found his way out. He found his way to the light thanks to Estelle and Cassius and all the other people in his life. And that's how he went from broken boy to charming hero. That is the story of Joshua Bright. Now, if you like this sort of video / analysis thing I did here, I really appreciate it if you would like and comment and tell me what you think. If you haven't played Trails in the Sky first and second chapter yet still watch this video, I really implore you to actually play those games. They are fucking wonderful and great, especially if you have the patience for a long story and turn-based combat. It's exceptional, it's wonderful, greatest to ever do it, and I really thank you once again for watching, and I will see you next time.